na da na 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 dum 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 dum. Let us see what do we got going on. Alrighty, yeah, I think it's about that time. We are back, and in today's episode of Retired in Korea, we're going to be talking about some stuff here. But before we get into that, we've got our latte that we got going on. Actually, a salted caramel. Oh, I nailed it. I nailed it. It is so good. Alrighty. Other things that we got going on. We also got a couple of donuts in our mix here. So let me see if I can. Can I do that? I don't know if I can do that or not. I've got some. What am I trying to do here? I think I can switch that around and I can take a look at. I can get like a view of our morning. We have our, if you check that out, we've got our morning coffee and donuts. So we've got like a cream filled something or other. And then we've got this bad boy here. Look at that. All kind of creamy goodness. That is, so we're going to be, it's a snow day here in Korea. So in case you're wondering, yeah, it's probably not going to go to the gym today. The wife does have some stuff planned. Hey, we got Swedish Forge here. Hey, bro, what's up? Good seeing you. Yeah, it snowed here in Korea. So at least the military schools are on a snow delay. And that's delayed until like 9 o'clock. Roads are a little rough. I don't mind driving in the snow. I know how to drive in snow. It's the other people that worry me because I don't know. It's strange. It's like every winter it snows and people tend to forget how to drive in snow every single year. I lived in Colorado. And we would get a lot of snow in Colorado. And every single year, you would have people getting in accidents, driving too fast. And it was like, seriously, really? You don't, every single year it snows. And then people drive on the ice and the snow like it's some new phenomenon that they've never seen before. And they drive, 100 miles an hour. It's absolutely crazy. Swedish Forge says, hey, let you know, I just printed out my first miniature, scaled up 200%. It was really nice. Awesome. Cool. I'm printing out another one as we speak. And I had a couple of false starts. I had some problems with some of the settings. And I just wasn't getting the supports. And I was like, man, what the hell's going on? And then, so I had one failed print, and I was trying to do that orc that, well, I could bring it up, I guess. Kind of show you what I was doing. There we go, desktop. And there we end up seeing we've got our orc. And I tried printing this out like 3 times, and it failed. It kept failing. And unfortunately, what I ended up doing is I used this here, miniature PLA, and apparently something changed. So either in that profile, but I did, I haven't used it in such a long time, so I'm wondering if I also ran calibration, all that new stuff. I did the PID, reran that to make sure everything was squared away. Also did not a reinstall, but an install of the new firmware, so I kept my fingers crossed. And then now we're running this again, and so now we're not getting the camera feed. So Creality, you need to get on the ball. So we'll see how this goes. This is going to cost like 75 cents, and it's going to take like 4 hours, so we'll see how that turns out. But that's cool. Cool, you got your first miniature going. That is awesome. Um, I have been looking over some other stuff, and there's actually want to get more. I want to try to get into tabletop gaming. We'll see how that goes. I don't know how that will fare. Uh, mm. Mm. Oh my gosh. That is just wonderful. This is from a Korean bakery. Well, a famous bakery. The wife, on the wife's side, she's got some like cousins or whatever. And her brother's kids, and they're like 40. So, we're 60. Wife is a few years younger than me. But one of them brought down a bunch of donuts, and it's like, ooh, yeah, the Korean bakery stuff is, of course, there the Pirates on says, love Korean bakery. I know, right? And then we've got another one here, too. So we're going to be donut it up, pastry up. Mm. Oh, man. Oh, they're so good. So anyway, yeah, that's cool. Doing some prints. Like I said, I ended up having some problems, and I'm trying to, let me see if I can bring up that page. It's printing. And will it work online? Let's see if we can get it. No. Of course, the newest the newest version of Creality Print, the camera doesn't work now. So on the thing. Oh well. Let's see. Corsair says, "Stop making me hungry." Na 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 na. Mm. Oh, that was so good. Oh my gosh. Mm. Light, fluffy, not overly sweet, but sweet enough to like want to eat more. Mm. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's like all kinds of creamy goodness. Yes, Ned Venom says, you tease. Oh yes. Mm. Man, this is good. Corsair says, it is 17:23 here. Need to find some food now. Yeah. It is 7:23 or 7:24 here in the morning. So we're getting our drink on. And Love Mo, hey, I popped into the stream. Had been a minute since we've seen you. Red bean paste is a better filling. It is really good. For those of you who don't know, here in Korea they have like a sweet red bean paste that is, it is pretty good too. So if you don't like things that are overly sweet, the red bean paste, oh, that is really good too. I mean, but these are nailing it. Oh. So good. I don't know how much we're gonna talk, because this is just so good. Sweetest says, can I send a link in the chat? Give it a try. I don't know if you can. That's a good question. Of course, there the pirate says, Kurim bong, cream bread. Bong is bread. Is always a better filling. Cream bread, that is good. Yeah, the pastries over here in Korea are the bomb. So it is quite the pastries over here, and it's different than the United States. Korea has a real subtle pastry. I mean, they got some sweet stuff going on, but a lot of their pastries would seem like muted, or they're not as harsh and sugary. You still get some sugar, but it's kind of a mellow sugar type, and it's just really good. They're, I don't know. That's probably a good thing since I live in Korea. Those are so good. Yeah, Swedish, if you can't send the link, if you can tell me what it is, then I can look it up and then I could post it and we could take a look at that. Corsair says, you were in Hawaii. Did you have the Portuguese pastries? Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, best thing I ever put in my mouth. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah, those are pretty good. The pastries over there. I forget the name of them, but when we were on Oahu, the wife and I, we get up early before, and then we drive and we go past Waikiki and we go around the other tip of the island, and we'd stop at, before you get to and kind of head around, and it was way before Halona Cove. There was like a last little store and whatever, and they had a little food truck there that would have those Portuguese pastries with filling and all that stuff. Oh my gosh, those are so good. So we get a box of those, and then we go to Halona Cove, and we just kind of chill and sit and watch the sun and all that, and get in the water, take some pictures. Then we drive further on down and go along and hit the different beaches and stuff like that. We would make a day of it. And then we would buy them the day before, and then we would drive at dark 30, get to Halona Cove, and then we watch the sun come up, eating Portuguese pastries, whatever they were called. Swedish says, female scepter on Colts 3D. Let me see if I can pull that up. Female scepter Colts 3D. Dun 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 dun. Dun. Okay, yeah. And is family safe? We'll take a look at this. For those of you who are wondering, I'll post the link in the description, and we'll take a look at that real quick before we get into our topic. So there is, it's like a little tyrannid bug thing that we got going on. Cool, kind of cool looking. I like that. Nice. I'll have to check that out. See what they got. Some other designs. Yeah, there's all kinds of free stuff you can find on Colts. So that's pretty sharp. I like that. That's cool. Nice. Hey, we got Terry here. Terry's here. Terry pops in and says hi. We got George. George is in the mix here today. Yeah. So we're kind of easing into the topic. Georgia asks, how did the print turn out? There was a story about that. It didn't. For whatever reason, I was having problems, and I printed it at 0.8 millimeter layer height, and it wasn't working. And so I had a failed print, had 3 failed prints, and finally I was like, this isn't right. So I changed the profile that I was using, and it was an old profile that I set for the 0.8. So apparently there was a change, or it wasn't working the way it was supposed to work, or I changed something. I don't know. Maybe I'm sleep printing and changing settings in Creality Print as I sleep. But I went back and used the standard 0.8, and it's printing out right now. So we're still keeping our fingers crossed. But the supports weren't on the bed and all kinds of weird stuff. And then as I restarted the K2 Plus, it said that there's a new version, new firmware. So I'm like, the last few have been problematic. So I went ahead and I updated the new firmware, did a full calibration, input shaping, PID testing, all of that stuff, and then closed Creality print, brought it back up, brought in the model again, and so we're printing it out. We'll see how this turns out. And unfortunately, I don't have a camera feed for that because now after the firmware upgrade, it's not working. So yeah, here we'll take a look at this. So there's the there it is, and it says it's printing. And cross fingers, will it work? Oh, it is working now. Okay. So yeah, we can see we got a little bit of print on. It looks better already. So, and I'm not using Tree Slim. The Tree Slim were just too small, I think. And yeah, this should be done in about 4 hours. So it's good. Oh, so this is good that this is working here. It just wasn't working on the other thing. So yeah, I had a number of failed prints and everything, but oh well, it is what it is. It was like lose like 50 or 70 cents worth of filament. So Swedish Forge says it was really cool big. I'll probably make it more than 200%. Oh, wow. Yeah, get some bigness in the house. B-I-G. Yeah. So what else do we got going on? As far as like, and some of you know, I went to a tabletop gaming store here in Korea, which is local, and it's like a 10-minute walk, so it's pretty cool. Went and did a little bit of painting, and matter of fact, I could probably show you. I just did one character. I ended up doing one, and just got a little bit of purple action going on. So you can see we got that there. Did a little bit on him, kind of scuff him up a little bit, but it kind of turned out good. So yeah, I like him. I like the purple. The purple's good. Needs a little bit of grime and everything, but get that grim dark stuff going. But yeah. So anyway, that a little bug has got in my mind about doing tabletop gaming, and I don't know about Warhammer. Seems like there's so many rules. And I'll probably try Warhammer. They have like a loner army or strike team or whatever. Maybe I'll just go watch and a few times and see how people play, and just kind of pick some people's brains and see what happens after that. But then I also ran into another game online, which got me kind of interested because I saw it on Facebook and military guys were playing it. It was part of it. It's a tactical game, and it is this one here. It's called Blackout. And this is kind of like a futuristic, and I haven't done anything with this. I pulled up this page and that's what you see. You're seeing what I'm seeing. We got a question from Corsair, the pirate. I have no idea about this stuff. How much does a failed print cost? It kind of depends. So like if you print something like this, and this is kind of big, but usually you'll know whether the print is going to fail or not, usually in the beginning. And if it does, it's a minimal amount, especially with like this or smaller. Yeah, it's a minimal amount of expense. Like I said, the failed prints I had were probably, I don't know. What does this one end up costing? If I go back and I look at this, the one I'm printing now is like 75 cents. So maybe I lost a quarter or 20 cents, something like that. It's not terribly bad. When you get into bigger stuff, that's when you'll lose some more money. But usually you have things dialed in and it should be good. George says, depending on size, not much. Most slicers will give you a price projection. And they do, matter of fact. So like if we take a look here, you can see over here on the right, it says printing time, 4 hours, 37 minutes, the amount of filament, and then the cost for the filament that I bought is 75 cents. So yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. For bigger prints though, you're going to be spending some more money. So, uh, dun dun dun. Sweetie says, check your email. Straight to the poorhouse for you. Yeah, it could be. Let me check the email. Because Swedish, I think, sent me something, apparently. And not that account. We need to go to that account. And Swedish Ford Printing. Ooh, look at that. We will. Oh. Let's go ahead and we'll throw this up. Look at that. There's a bug for you. That is kind of big. It's kind of a cool looking bug there, man. That's pretty good detail too. Nice. Sweet. That looks really good. Got the little brain stuff and all that. Nice, nice. Good job. Good job. Let's see. Did I get any other? No, not there. So nothing strikingly new, but that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's neat. It's always cool when a print comes out, and I still get excited when a print comes out and it works. So. That pastry is so good. George says, I don't even want to think how much that lady spent on her life-size Space Marine. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. It's kind of that busty lady, and she's got like a Space Marine that's like 8 or 10 feet tall or whatever, or Primaris, whatever. I mean, huge monster prints. And she had like, what, 12 printers or something like that? Yeah, she had like 6, and then she bought 6 more and printed those out, and then they're like the cubes. It is like absolutely crazy. The amount of filament to do that, wow, that is some money. Not only to buy the printers, but to buy all the filament. So it's kind of crazy. Some of these people will end up doing monster prints, and they'll do them, and then companies will see them and say, hey, we'll sponsor you and we'll give you filament if you keep printing life-size monsters and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, pretty wild. Sweetie says, old man printing. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Going downstairs to find some food. Have a good stream. Yes, you too. Enjoy your meal. I'm going to be kind of chowing down as we talk. The Iron Man armor guy, frankly built, I think that's who you're talking about. He's made his own Iron Man suits and stuff like that. He does a lot of big prints. But yeah, it's really good. I'm waiting to do my Doomslayer armor. I'm waiting for the software from Galactic Armory. The form fitter software is supposed to be out this year that will size the armor so you can get dimensions, measure your head and length and width and arms and chest and everything, all the different measurements. And then you can import your armor, your STL file, which is the file that, is the model within the slicing program. You can put that into that program, and then you can scale it to the dimensions of your body. So that way you're less apt to make mistakes and waste filament. So you can scale the armor, make it bigger, wider, thicker, whatever, smaller, all of that. And then you can get it proportioned to your size, your specific size. So I'm waiting for that to do the armor for the Doomslayer. So yeah, I don't know if I'll make Halloween or not. It's really dependent upon when that software comes out. So we'll see. Ned Venom says, saw Frankly built at Orlando Maker Fair. Oh, wow. That was cool. It really was cool in person. Yeah, I bet. That is just crazy. He's like a short guy, isn't he? He's like, I'd say, what, 5'5", maybe? He seems like he's Of course, it's hard to tell on the internet. You know, you're watching a little screen on your computer or TV, and it's hard to tell how tall people are. There's some people that I have met in person, and I'd seen them on social media, and it's like, oh my gosh, you're small. Dude's like, what? It was a military guy, and he goes, yeah, I know. It was kind of funny. Ned Bennett says no, closer to 6 foot. Really? Wow. Oh, okay. That's mind blowing. For some reason, I always kind of pictured him as, or seeing him as a smaller guy. I mean, he's lean, but 6 foot. Okay, cool. I mean, I'm 6'2", but wow. Okay, that's cool. I've met some actors in my time, and seeing them in person, most of the time they're shorter. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And I had family members work at Universal Studios, not the theme park, but actual Universal Studios. So I met like Telly Savalas, the two guys from Chips. Who was the other one? Charlton Heston. There was a couple others that I met. Planet of the Apes, you know, the old Planet of the Apes. Again, I was born in '66, so. And then, of course, then as a kid, everybody was bigger than me, but some of them were bigger than the average person, so, but it was pretty cool. Nice. So anyway, let's get to the topic now that we've done all that. Wait, Joel was 6 foot. Frank was about 5'7". Okay. So I was close. Frank is I thought he would be about 5'5". Hey, we got Sultan. Sultan's here. He says, good morning, Steve. Watch your video about going to the hospital. Hope all is well. Yeah, I did a little trip to Samsung Medical, and the whole idea, since I'm going to be 60 this year, the wife has been like, you know, you can go to Korean hospitals and get a full checkup, and they do full blood labs, and they'll do an EKG, they do chest x-ray, urinalysis, the whole 9 yards. So it's a really big, there's some stuff that we didn't get, but pretty much a big physical. And then also scheduled to get a colonoscopy sometime in the future. So this Thursday, my wife has to go in for a routine procedure. So we're going to go back up to Samsung and do that. And for those of you who don't know, where we live, close to Pyeongtaek, we got to get a taxi to the train station, and once we get to Seoul, which is about a 20-minute ride, then we get a free bus to Samsung Medical Center, and then we go do our medical stuff. And then, of course, we have to do the reverse, get the bus, get a train, and then get taxi and all that stuff. And taxi is about 14,000 won per trip. So the whole round trip ticket for everything as far as travel ends up being about $50 for both of us. Let's see. Sultan says the hospital we go to, Bundang Seoul National University, just 10-minute bus ride away. Oh, nice, sweet. That's good. Ned Venev says, if I can get the comment, there it is. It was cool seeing sights on the way to your appointment. Yeah, I need to do better on the videos too. I need to work on that. So we go places, I'll try to do quick little things, but make it better. Sultan says, speaking of which, I still owe you photos, I promise. I'm going to email, but I'll wait until the weather gets better. Absolutely stunning here. Yeah, the weather's, we got snow here. We have snow. Ned Venev says, lunch looked great. Yeah, it was. I guess, maybe we can pull that up. Oh, it's on my phone. Maybe I could transfer it over. Oh, well. Because it's like a 4-minute video. You can pull it up on YouTube because that's where I uploaded it to. And dun 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 dun. There it is. Yeah, it's like 4 minutes and 23 seconds. So let's take a look, see, and show you what this looks like. Our little trip to Samsung Medical. 16 degrees. This is going to be our trip of going from Hanjin to Seoul Samsung Medical Center. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a trip. Check it out. The first step is taking a taxi. Yeah, the taxi ride is going to be about 15-20 minutes to the train station. Now we're here at the train station. Time to get some coffee. SRT, and we have a convenience store. Over there we've got the board to tell you which trains go where. We've got a little eating place. And if you need tickets, they have a ticket counter, and then they also have the kiosk. So, with that, the other cool thing is that on the board, they will have it in Korean and in English. And then they'll have the announcements in both Korean and English as well. So that really helps out in regards to traveling and getting where you need to go. It was cold, very cold. Getting on, this is a first class car. So it's not the economy. There's a little bit more room here, which is nice. We splurge. Cool thing about the first class, you get a little snack and a bottle of water. Get you a little snack thing. We're at Suso Station. Just get off the train after a quick little 20 minutes. And now we're going to go out and up, and we're going to catch the free Samsung bus to go to Samsung Medical Center. So let's check that out. Come out there and we get in line because these are the buses that will go to certain medical centers, and we're heading to Samsung Medical. So these run about every 7 minutes. Buses, Samsung, Gangnam Severance, and Asan Medical, but we are going to Samsung. Yeah, pretty sure. Got chest X-ray, blood work, EKG. Now it's time for food. Now it's pharmacy and food. So yeah, we're getting something to eat before we go, and yeah, reverse everything and go back home. We successfully navigated Samsung Medical Center for chest X-rays, EKG, blood test, urine test, pharmacy, consult for colonoscopy. That's always fun. We finished lunch, and now we're gonna do the reverse and go home. We get some coffee along the way too. So yeah, not too bad. And right now it is 1:40 in the afternoon. So yeah, got to do a doctor's appointment. It's gonna be kind of like an all-day thing. There is the Seoul Station, Suso Station. That's the one that you leave out of. And then you end up, again, kind of doing the whole thing. Coffee. More coffee. Coffee and donuts. Coffee and donuts. That's where we get the donuts. What time is it?
6 after 4.
6 after 4. So going to Samsung Medical is an all-day thing. Definitely an all-day thing. Yeah. Your day is gone. What time did we leave this morning?
8:15.
8:15 to
4 o'clock, basically.
Full day. So yeah, don't plan anything. You're doing medical at Samsung. That's all you're going to be doing. Okay. So anyway, yeah, that's our little trip. So we'll see you on the next one. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, a little trip up to. It'd be nice if we lived in Seoul, but the fact is, it's just too expensive. And then that's outside of our budget. But here where we live, next to a U.S. military base, it's still a little expensive for housing, but we found a good deal, and yeah, everything works out. So spending a day to go to Samsung. Now that's not the normal hospital that we go to. There's one in Pyeongtaek, which is like 15, 20 minutes away. We drive there, it's no problem. For kind of like regular medical stuff, we go to Samsung Medical Center for like the big stuff. And so it's kind of like we treat Good Morning Hospital, which is in Pyeongtaek, kind of like an emergent care clinic type of thing. They've got more services. They are a real hospital. I could have gotten a colonoscopy there, but Samsung Medical is one of the top 5 hospitals in Korea. Excuse me. So on something like that, I would rather go there, spend a day. And matter of fact, we went up there to get my other medications because I can get like a 90-day supply of prescriptions. Whereas at Good Morning Hospital in Pyeongtaek, I have to go get refills every single month. So that means every month I would have to go see a doctor. So is it worth the 50 some odd bucks to go to Seoul, and do that whole trip, spend a day, getting prescriptions or whatever? We think it is. So not bad. Looks clean there on the streets. Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Seoul is definitely pretty nice. There are some areas of Korea that aren't as clean, but thankfully, as with any country, I don't know, Japan's pretty clean. They're pretty clean. But yeah, it's good. We like it. People are respectful. It's clean for the most part. And yeah, like on the train, if you noticed how quiet it was, people are really respectful, really mindful. If you get a phone call, you get outside of the car and you go in between the 2 cars to be able to get on your phone. Everybody has headphones. Nobody's yelling and screaming or anything. That's not what you do on public transportation here in Korea. So, but yeah, pretty nice. And being in Korea, that brings up, since I am a foreigner in Korea, we're talking about this here, allowing foreigners to protest. This is quite the interesting thing because there is a law on the books here in Korea. Let me see if I can get this, because I moved stuff around. Imagine that. Korea has a ban on foreigners demonstrating or protesting here in Korea. So as a foreigner who lives in Korea on a visa, I am not allowed to protest or attend demonstrations. It's against the law for me to do so. Now, there are people that do that. I've seen foreigners show up and do at protests and demonstrations or even demonstrate. But the thing is, Korea is pretty lax on that. But it comes to a point of where sometimes they can arrest you for that. And it's in direct violation of the law. So if I break that law, Korea, in all rights, can deport me. And the due process is, in the United States, it's this whole thing about due process is like, oh, they need due process. Due process doesn't automatically mean a court trial with jury and a judge and a prosecutor and defense. No, it's a process, and you have that due process. So there's a process that you go through. So for example, if I went out and demonstrated and for whatever reason, the Korean government and a policeman arrested me and said, hey, you're a foreigner, obviously. You're not supposed to be protesting. And if I push the issue, I could get arrested for that. And then with that, the due process is through the policies and procedures of Korean immigration and the Korean laws. They would say, okay, you were caught, we got you on CCTV camera. You were protesting and demonstrating when if there's a law that says that you're not allowed to do that as a foreigner, there's the process. The result is now we're going to deport you because you did something illegal, and that puts your visa in jeopardy. So according to the laws and the policy of Korea, that's the due process. So I just and it's kind of similar to the United States, because we see a bunch of people in the United States screaming about, unless you've been living under a rock, immigration and ICE uh, government agency is going through, and they're getting a lot of illegal immigrants out of the United States. Now, there's a lot of different types of illegals that are in the United States. You have some that are into child trafficking, human trafficking. They're getting those people and they're deporting them. People that are running drugs and criminal organizations that are in the United States illegally, they're deporting those as well. And then people that just came over and didn't use the correct means or the legal means in which to immigrate into the United States. In other words, they didn't get a visa. So they broke the laws. Here's the thing, they broke the laws of their land by not getting a visa, and then they broke the laws of the United States by not getting a visa. And then, so there's that. And the whole thing is kind of weird because, oh, how dare you turn away these immigrants? Well, the ones that broke the law, it's kind of a problem because would you invite a criminal into your house, into your home? No, I wouldn't. How about a child trafficker, human trafficking? Would you invite one of those people into your house? No, absolutely not. I'd kick them out. Same thing goes for our country. But here in Korea, in the United States, we have freedom of speech. And if you're a foreigner in the United States, you have the freedom of speech. That's allowed by the government and the rules and the regulations and the laws that they have. But even within that, if you say things that are like terrorist or threatening in nature, that can put your visa at risk. Kind of similar to me. If I do this demonstration here in Korea, I could lose my visa and I could be deported. Okay. Now, this whole thing started a long time ago, and people are all up in arms on this. Holy crow. And the funny thing is on social media where I see this, people are leaving comments and they're people that don't live in Korea. It's like white American, Caucasian-ish, and there's even, some minorities that are chiming in, but it's like you have no idea about the Korean government. You don't know how it's organized. You don't know the processes or the policies or the laws or the immigration laws for that matter. And yet you're saying, no, foreigners need to be able to protest. And it's like, let's hold up. Let's talk about this. That's what we're going to do. There's two sides to every coin. Swedish says here in Sweden, politicians say if immigrants commit crimes, they will go out and be deported by the court. Yeah. Same in the United States. Matter of fact, pretty much most countries that if you're a foreigner, and whether you're there legally or illegally in that country and you commit crimes, you can get deported. Some countries, they will put you in prison. Some countries will just straight up unalive you. So, yeah. Mexico puts people in prison if you were found to be there illegally. So me as an American citizen, I could be an immigrant, illegal immigrant into Mexico, and if Mexican authorities arrest me and catch me, they can put me in prison. And there are cases where that has been the case, okay? Most of the time they're pretty lax on that. They don't enforce their laws, but that is a law. There are laws on the books in Mexico that actually do that. And in other countries, you can go to jail, you have to pay fines or a combination of both, and then they deport you after the prison. You serve your time. Other countries just deport you, kind of like the United States. So a lot of countries, sovereign countries, have their own immigration rules and policies. Here in Korea, it's kind of interesting. And a bunch of Karens are just, I don't know, social justice warriors, or just like, and I'll get to that. It's just really kind of odd. So here it is. South Korea is facing a constitutional challenge of a decades-old law that bars foreigners from engaging in political activities. Yeah, this is an old law. I think it goes back to the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. I think it mentions it here. Solbait's rights advocacy group filed a petition with the Constitutional Court challenging Article 17-2 of the Immigration Act. And Article 17-2 prohibits all political activity by foreign nationals unless otherwise followed by statute, and violations can trigger deportation or exit orders. So it's pretty simple. Don't do it. if you come to Korea on a visa, these are the rules in which you got to follow. So either follow the rules or don't come to Korea. For me, that's simple. Swedish says, I'm a little unsure if this is true according to Swedish law, but if a family member commits a crime, the entire family can be deported. I'm not 100% sure about that. I don't know. It's possible. Because usually, like say if there is, let's say there's a man and his wife and they have kids. And usually if you have a visa, I'm just going to talk in generalities here, the man has a visa, the wife has a visa, and that is usually tied to the husband's visa. So let's say he has like a work visa, education visa, whatever it is, and then the children are also attached to him as well, or to the wife or whatever. So if the husband commits crime, then what can happen, whether he's here legally or illegally, let's just say he has a visa, just to keep it simple, if he commits a crime and the laws and the policies say you can't commit crimes, otherwise you'll be deported, they can deport the entire family. Now the reason is just kind of like here in Korea, my wife has an F4 visa. I have an F1 visa, which is tied to my wife's visa. So I'm the spouse of her being a returning Korean citizen. So if her visa, let's say she commits a crime and she gets deported because she's a U.S. citizen, my visa is in jeopardy and I would have to leave as well. Maybe at best case, I would be able to stay until the end of my visa. I don't know. We haven't really looked into that because we're law-abiding citizens. So, that didn't really concern us about all those details. So you'll see that as a problem. And a lot of people in the United States that I'm seeing are saying, oh, look, they're deporting the wife and the kids, and oh, that's horrible. And it's like, no, it's just simple policy, which usually is the norm in most industrialized countries. Even in third world countries, that's a thing. So it's not like, oh, the husband commits a crime, the wife and kids can still stay. No, their visa is often tied to the main visa holder. So in other words, who's on an educational visa, work visa, whatever it is that they have, the spouse is usually tied to that individual, let's say the husband. In my case, my visa is tied to my wife's visa. So if something happens to her, she gets deported, I would have to leave as well. So yeah, something to be said about be a good person, obey the law, that's all you got to do. Let's see. Swedish Ford says we have extremely big problems with gang crime. Yeah, we've got problems here in Korea with that, but they're pretty good at enforcing the laws as far as criminal activity, and they're cracking down on that. A lot of Chinese crime, Thai, not a lot of American gangs here. That's not really a thing. So, and then there's also some Korean gangs, Korean mafia, things like that. But yeah, the sovereignty of the nation is important, and they have to enact and enforce laws to keep that sovereignty for the safety of their own people and the people who live there. So that's what we're talking about. But with this, it's kind of funny because you'll have a bunch of Karens and Kens that will be ranting and raving, social justice warriors, I guess you could call them. Oh, foreigners need to be able to protest. And it's like, well, no one's saying that you can't protest. Just go do it somewhere else. It's that simple. In my mind, it is really simple. And we'll go over kind of some of this stuff. So let's get back to the article. The group, this rights group, argues that it imposes a principled, comprehensive, and blanket ban that suppresses social participation and expression by residents who work, study, and live long-term in the country. I have a problem with this because it's saying that there's basically no way in which there's no other way that these people can participate socially and express themselves or say, hey, there's some rights things going on, workers' rights or union rights or whatever it is, whatever rights that they're talking about. There's no way to address these things to the Korean government other than doing a demonstration or a protest politically. That's not the case. So that's an unfair assumption right there. That's a false assumption. There are other ways to do it. You know, it's not saying that you can't contact the government and say, hey, for your city or area, things like that. And there are organizations that will work on rights for foreigners and unions and, abused spouses and children and the whole nine yards. So there's a number of organizations. So saying that this is a comprehensive and blanket ban, a total ban, it's not, because there are ways in which you can express concerns, for foreign residents to people in the Korean government, Korean employers, and so on and so forth, whether you study or live or work or whatever. This dates back to 1977 with the authoritarian Yushin era and reflects Cold War view of foreigners as potential security threats, said OpenNet. That's absolutely true. There's nothing wrong, that is absolutely true. And to say just because something is old and it was during the Cold War era and abused foreigners with potential security threats is absolutely true. Foreigners can be a security threat. The thing is, we need to have a system of government with checks and balances, not only for the government in itself, but also for the people, so that we don't see a rehashing of getting subversives and getting people that are trying to overthrow the government, which ultimately the end result of what happened in Korea with the Korean War was exactly that. You had two different types of political parties, and you had the Communist Party, and then you had, the Democratic Republic of Korea, the Republic of Korea, and they're kind of at odds. And boom, next thing you know, we have the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. So just because something dates back to 1970s doesn't mean that it's wrong. That's an appeal to, I don't know, what would be the logical fallacy? Appeal to, it's not authority, but time, I guess. Just because something is old means it's outdated, which means we shouldn't use it. No, murder's wrong. Murder's been on the books since what, the Code of Hammurabi or whatever, back to the Old Testament days, for those of you who are, Christians or believers or whatever. Pretty much murder is a bad thing around the entire world. So, and that's pretty old. So if we use that same logic, well, just because something is old means that it shouldn't be a law, or we shouldn't do it, that doesn't hold any water. It says, with more than 2.8 million foreign residents in the country, forcing silence on such a scale is incompatible with modern democracy. I have an issue with this, because forcing silence on such a scale, but that's assuming that protesting and demonstrations are the only way in which you can address your grievances. And it's not. Like I said, there's government organizations, there's nonprofit organizations, there's union reps, and all kinds of organizations that will voice these things. Kind of like this group, Open Rights Group, they bring these to the table as well. So you got to be careful in saying it's incompatible with a modern democracy. They kind of throw that in there as, you're forcing silence, and so that's against our government. But there is no forced silence, because you do have all these organizations. And there's nothing in the Korean government that says that a foreigner like myself can't go to the Korean government, local or state government, federal government, and view my 2 cents, or to make suggestions or things like that. That's not it. So this whole straw man argument is saying, oh, we're forcing silence. It's not forcing silence, because there are ways in which you can file and address your grievances. And with that comes from a modern democracy. If you look at the United States and you look at other countries, most industrialized countries have ways in which foreigners can file grievances or suggestions or things like that. So it urged the Constitutional Court to issue what is described as meaningful and timely decision It said the definition of political activity, acts intended to influence political decision making, is so broad it effectively silences foreign nationals on issues ranging from their own rights to the politics of their home countries and global matters such as climate action. That's kind of an interesting thing. Let's hit some comments. Swedish foreigners are talking about problems with gang crime. Gang leaders send children to kill or unalive people, 11 to 13-year-olds. That's completely crazy. Yeah, that's kind of a bad thing. That's and especially when those children are the children of people who are guests in your country. Yeah, you need to follow the laws. Imlubmo says, yes, foreigners can be potential security threats. Yeah, they can be. You're not entitled to be allowed to stay in a country if you engage in behavior that displeases the government. And what was that last part? You have human rights, though. Absolutely. So there's a balance between, for the safety and the sovereignty of Korea and the people who live here, they have policies and laws to keep a certain level of conduct and safety and to guard themselves from things that happened like, the Korean War. Excuse me, military coups, takeovers, things like that. And letting foreigners into your country's political arena can be very, very problematic. And yeah, it's, but there are human rights organizations here in Korea. And again, just like what we end up seeing here is so broad that it effectively silences foreign nationals on the issues ranging from their own rights. Well, there's a number of organizations in Korea that deals just specifically with foreigners and their rights, whether it's studying, working, anything here in Korea. So again, the prior claim of saying that there's no way to address any grievances because you're not allowed to protest or demonstrate, that falls flat because there are a number of organizations that do exactly that. So, but yeah, to effectively silences foreign nationals on issues ranging of their own rights to the politics of their home countries. What does that really mean? If you're in another country, it doesn't really matter what your politics in your home country is because you're the guest of the country that you're in. So you need to follow the rules and regulations and be a good person, regardless of where you're at, whether your home country or here. But what Korea doesn't want, and so many other nations don't want, is for the politics of other countries to influence the country like Korea. Does Korea want influence from North Korea in how they do business? Absolutely not. Probably don't want any communist country or socialist countries to have any influence in how the Korean government runs or, kind of oversees its citizens and keeps them safe. So yeah, global matters, climate action, climate change, that whole thing, that's a whole nother ball of wax. Again, there's differing views on that. Petitioners in the case is a foreign employee of a climate-focused nonprofit. Okay, again, it's kind of hard when you start throwing world climate thing in there. OpenNet said the petitioner cannot freely take part in press conferences, rallies, or campaigns related to Korea's climate, environment, or energy policies for fear of violating the law. Press conference? Anybody can go to a press conference. So I think they're stretching this out. They're being very, very malleable with this and saying that the petitioner can't take part in a press conference. As a foreigner, I can go to any press conference where I'm allowed to go. I'm not forbidden from going to press conferences. So I find this a little bit disingenuous. Rallies or campaigns? You can go to rallies, but protests and demonstrations, that's the different thing. Energy policies on fear of violating the law. So I think they're playing a little fast and loose with how they worded this, saying, oh, you can't even go to press conferences. It's like, yeah, you can. There's a number of people that come to Korea specifically for press conferences and campaigns dealing with climate change, human rights, and a number of other things going on. The Korean government sponsor these things in Korea, and other people from other nations come to Korea for these rallies and campaigns and so on and so forth, press conferences and meetings and roundtable discussions and viewing speakers and the whole nine yards. So I just find it's like I think they're trying to make this more than what it really is. Let's get to some comments. And Lovemo says, oh yes, foreigners can appeal grievances regarding their rights in Korea. An Indian national was the first foreigner to make a racial discrimination complaint. The Koreans fought his claim, but he won. And that's the thing. I mean, each country should champion human rights, within the parameters of their government and their constitution. And Korea does a pretty good job about that. Is any country perfect? Absolutely not. People say the United States is the best country in the world. It's got its own problems. But what in Korea, so does Korea and every other country. But what we see in Korea is that over time they continue to improve how it treats its citizens, how it deals with human rights, and so on and so forth. So it's not like a stagnant, where Korea's not doing anything. Korea's doing a lot for human rights, for women's rights, not going as fast as what some people would like, but it's making forward progression, just like every other country. So, you need to keep that into consideration. But yeah, you can file grievances as a foreigner here in Korea. So this whole article thing just seems kind of like a little bit of rage bait, a little bit, I think. Yellow Tang, hey, welcome. Says, I think they're saying that you cannot participate in a press conference. Yeah, they're saying you can't go to a press conference, but that's not what the law says. Yeah, Article 17-2 is talking about political activity. Now, you can have a press conference that deals with Korean politics, but that doesn't mean that I can't go to that press conference. Yeah, that's not what that means. So again, this open net rights thing, they're kind of, they're kind of making this a little bit bigger than, if you read the law and you'll be like, oh yeah, you can go to press conference. Yeah, it's not a big deal. What are the odds? So anyway, let's go back to the article. Let's see what else we got. Another one. M. Ludmo says, this article seems to be wanting to expand foreigners' rights beyond what's acceptable. I smell a foreign, PRC, influence campaign, or the article was paid by them. Yeah, it could be. And that's something that we're going to talk about is it's good to have input from foreigners and be able to address grievances, human rights, discrimination, all of those things, which you can do here in Korea. And unfortunately, articles like this and similar ones make it sound like there is none of that in Korea, but there absolutely is. Remember, there's always two sides to a story. And, somewhere in the middle, you're going to get a balanced view. And that's kind of what I look at. I'm an independent, and let's look at both sides. And when you read the context, and yeah, but this whole thing of saying that people can't go to press conferences, whether they're political or climate change or whatever it is, and this guy's in fear, this foreigner's in fear of being arrested, being deported, you can watch these press conferences and they're littered with foreigners. Foreigners that come over specifically for those press conferences. If this was such a die-hard rule in the law, those people flying into Korea wouldn't be able to come to Korea because that would be against the law. So again, it kind of shows this is really shaky ground and they're trying to stretch this, it's not really true. They're they're stretching it out a little bit, trying to make it worse than what it actually is. The group said the restriction has similarly chilled participation by refugees, migrants, and foreign activists on issues such as democratization movements abroad, international conflicts, or policies on refuge and labor matters. Wow, that's a whole ball of wax that you need to unpack there. Let's take a look at that. Chilled participation, chilly, cold, evil. Yes, by refugees, migrants, and foreign activists. Can't you just be a refugee, migrant, or a foreign national here in Korea for work or school or whatever it is under a visa and not be an activist? Why do just be a good person? The problem is with activists is they have an agenda, and whether that agenda is right or wrong, it still needs to fall within the confines of the Korean government and what they allow you to do. And as we pointed out, Korea does not just ban everything, that there's no grievances that any foreigners can file or migrants or refugees. There's no avenue, there's no voice for them in Korea. We already talked about that. That is absolutely untrue. Democratization movements abroad. I don't even know what that means. International conflicts. Korea has a visa system and immigration laws and rules and policies in place, regardless of what international conflicts are going on in the world. Because Korea is a sovereign nation and they're protecting its citizens and the people who decide to live, study, work, or retire here. Or policies on refuge and on refugee. The thing is, policies on refugees, just because somebody is a refugee does not mean that they should be granted automatic access and a visa to stay in any country that they want. I'm sorry, that's just not how it works. You know, just because you're a refugee, and my heart goes out to people that are having problems being refugees, but there's a lot of people who claim to be refugees and they're really not. You know, when you're a refugee and you claim refugee status because you're being abused by your home country, and then that, you know, you get to stay here, let's say in Korea, but then you go on vacation multiple times a year to go back to the country that you fled that was supposedly oppressing you to no end, and that's why you filed for refugee status. It sounds like you're not really a refugee. If it was so horrible there that you had to leave and become a refugee, why are you vacationing, going back and vacationing multiple times during a year to that country? Sounds like it's not as bad as you're making it out to be. Anybody ever think of that? And again, Korea or any country has its own sovereignty. They make the rules when it comes to refugees. So they can say, they could have like, you know what, we're full, we're done. We're not doing any more refugees because we're dealing with X amount of problems and that's all we're doing. That is totally acceptable and totally fine. You're going to have to go somewhere else. You know, there's only so many people I can invite into my house. There's a limit. And so people that are involved in human rights organizations, they try to take this stance of saying, you know what, you just need to accept all refugees regardless of how many there are, regardless of background or their criminal background or security checks. Nah, we don't need those. You don't need to do those. They're a refugee. Somehow this claim that being a refugee negates all of those things, and these people, you have to take them. That's not reality, folks. And I'm just surprised at, you know, if you can't check out the people that are coming into your country and you can't determine whether a good person or a bad person, err on the side of caution and just say, yep, sorry, you're going to have to go somewhere else. Just because you claim to be a refugee does not give you carte blanche to, you know, go to any country and live anywhere you want. Nations have sovereignty for a reason. They have rules, regulations, immigration laws, the whole nine yards. And the article then talks about labor matters. Again, it's kind of making it sound like Korea is this lost third world country that is so backwards that, you know, that the labor matters here, or, you know, there's no way to address these things without, you know, having foreigners having an influence or having a say, when in fact they actually do. There's been a lot going on with labor. And unfortunately, what happens is that the majority of labor problems with immigrants are due to illegal immigration. And I would say that's the same in the United States. I would say that would be the same here in Korea. If you have somebody who's in Korea, not on a visa, so they're not here legally, and then they go get work, those people are more often abused by their employers. They're not paid as much. They're not paid the minimum wage. They're given too much work, not enough safety, the whole 9 yards. But they shouldn't have been there to begin with. So the immigrants should be gone, should be deported because they broke the laws, the immigration laws of Korea. And then the employers who hired those illegal immigrants or those people not in Korea legally, they should be fined and punished according to the law as well, which that has happened. So there it is. It's kind of simple. Even expressions critical or supportive of global human rights concerns may be deemed political under the current law. Again, what does there's a problem because now you're allowing this is right on the razor's edge, in my opinion, of having influence that isn't in line with the Constitution of Korea or certain countries. Foreign nationals account for roughly 5.5% of Korea's population, and many contribute to the economy and local community as residents, said the group. Well, congratulations. Yeah, that's a thing, and yeah, that actually happens. I'm retired here in Korea. We contribute to the economy, the local communities as residents, but that does not mean that I should be exempt from following the laws and the sovereignty of the Korean Constitution. So I don't know why they're bringing this up. They're trying to make it say, well, because they contribute to the economy or they live and they pay taxes or, utilities and car and taxes, insurance, the whole 9 yards, that somehow that means that they should get more preferential treatment and they shouldn't, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. Korean citizens, the remaining percentage are Koreans, and they contribute to the economy and local communities as residents as well. So what's the big whoop-de-doo? It's not like they're the foreign nationals here in Korea, the 5.5% are doing anything above and beyond what the Korean nationals are doing. So this is another moot point. I don't see that. While Korea grants certain local voting rights to long-term foreign residents, which they do, the law simultaneously excludes them from the broader democratic discourse, creating what OpenNet called a contradiction in the legal framework. But again, I think that is based upon the fact that they're trying to say that there is no way for foreigners to address concerns, considerations, grievances within the Korean government when there actually is. Okay, it is not unlawful for me to go to a local city, state, or county government or federal government here in Korea and say, hey, I want to contact somebody and here's what I think you should do, or I'm being unfairly treated, or so on and so forth. There are organizations and agencies within the Korean government and nonprofits that deal with this stuff, and they bring that on behalf of the immigrants or the foreigners to the Korean government. So again, it's like they're trying to say that this is like a vacuum, that, there's absolutely no way in which you can address your grievances. So that's why this law needs to be going away. The interesting part about this is that, unfortunately, let me see if I can bring up some notes here. Blah, 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 blah. Where is it? That basically, let me see if I can find it. Is this it? Nope, not that one. Now I can't find it. Go figure. What are the odds? But basically, maybe I delete some notes. I got some notes I think I did. Oh yeah, I do have some notes. Okay, cool. I'm glad Notepad has saved my behind numerous times. So this article 17-2 of the Immigration Act, and I'm going to reference my notes, but yeah, foreigners do have ways in which they can express grievances and so on and so forth. We talked about that. But then there's also, on the other side of the coin, there's substantial risk to the sovereignty, the security, and the stability of the nation as well. And that's why some of these laws are in place. And of course, if you look back to the Korean War, you can see how that went terribly bad and in the worst extreme possible. Extreme possible. Some of the concerns on this is that the law, again, it came out in 1977, that it aims to prevent subversive influences that historically, again, history is our friend, contributed to the events of the Korean War and rise of oppressive regimes or governments. Permitting foreigners to engage in protests or advocacy opens the door to foreign governments to plant agents or operatives in Korea to manipulate the laws, the policies, and public discourse. This could jeopardize national security, the economy, the welfare system, the healthcare system, international business relations, and more, and put Korea sovereignty and its citizens at risk. So there's a reason for the law. And again, like I said, there's two sides to every story. You need to take that into consideration. Well, the law is old, but what is the law and why is that law there? Boom, there it is. And it really comes down to, how many times have we seen in the United States, because I'm an American citizen, how many times we've seen foreign nationals give undue pressure and influence to local, city, state, federal government by protesting and demonstrating and even issuing threats. I mean, it's kind of like, hey, wait a second now, that there needs to be a line on that. And if you can get so many foreigners can get in to do that, that can affect how Korea treats its own citizens and the people living here and have undue influence. And again, if you look at it, there have been countries who have sent subversives and demonstrators and protesters and pay them and fly them or, send them by bus, in the United States that is, to protest and demonstrate so that they can influence local policymakers, when in fact, if you had to hire them and pay them to demonstrate and protest, then it's not a true representation of the people. So you're going to cause undue influence. The potential disruption of social and political stability, we talked about that. Migrant background politicians have sometimes prioritized their demographics, eroding national cohesion. In South Korea's homogenous society, and again, we talked about that 5.5%, such dynamic could foster division and unrest without the accountability tied to citizenship. Personally, I don't want to see any of this. There's too much foreign involvement in a country, and that is problematic. And so, again, it goes back to the rules and the laws. If you're going to be living here on a visa, follow the rules and the laws. And, people would say, oh, well, you should have ways to address your grievances. There are. Thing is that a lot of people won't tell you how to do that here in Korea. And especially the people whose agenda is to, like we read, that open net or whatever, they don't tell you that. It's amazing how they, just forgot to mention all of the organizations within the Korean government or agencies and the nonprofit organizations that deal with foreigners that can address their concerns and rights and so on and so forth. Hell, there's been lawsuits of foreign nationals in Korea against employers, the government, and those people have won, has been pointed out. There's been numerous articles on that. So it's not like we're in a void where none of these things happen, as OpenNet tries to make it sound. Undermining Korean agency and self-government claims foreigners must protest for issues like migrant rights imply that Koreans are unable to advocate effectively or make policies on their own. This is what I've seen a lot of people, a lot of Kens and Karens and social justice warriors, is basically by saying this, they're trying to imply that Korea is just a poor country. Oh, poor little Koreans. They can't manage themselves. They can't, they're not adults enough or civil enough or smart enough to make good policies for foreigners. That's absolutely untrue. I find that really demeaning of make that implication or implying that. And some people have actually said that, going over some social media posts on this topic. It is just like, oh my God. And the funny thing is, I asked some questions. Some of these people have never even been to Korea. Some of these people have never been outside of the United States. And suddenly they're world renowned, they know all things about immigration and blah, 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 world travel. No, they're not. You haven't even left your home city, your home state. And yet you want to make and stand up and be a social justice warriors for immigrants because you don't know what you're talking about when immigrants actually do have ways to address their grievances and concerns. That just pisses me off. Jeez. But yeah, it's just like, oh, the Koreans can't do it, so they can't run their country and they can't make policies and make good decisions because they don't have the input from foreigners. And the only way to do that is through demonstrations and protests. Come on now, really? That's where you're going with? I don't get it. Balanced alliances and unrestricted influence. Critics who compare the U.S.-Korea military alliances overlook a crucial difference. Some of the people end up saying that, well, political influence, that's what that law is about. Well, are you going to kick out the United States military from Korea because they influence the politics of Korea? Right, gotcha. This is absolutely insane to try to take an issue and saying that foreigners shouldn't be involved in political protests or demonstrations and kind of throw that in the same box as the United States military or United Nations or other foreign countries that have military representation here in Korea for the safety of Korea from North Korea, which is agreed to through the policies and the constitution of the Korean government. The Korean government, and according to its laws, says, hey, we can do this, we can make these things, and it's beneficial for us to have the United States military over here and other militaries. They work out agreements. Boom. They made the agreement. The elected representatives of the Korean government made that agreement. It's within the confines of their constitution and according to their laws, so it's okay. It's not the same. It's like, oh, well, any political influence on the Korea as a country needs to go. No, that's not the case. Now you're blurring the lines, you're moving the goalposts, and you're trying to make it something that is not. And it's not. This all or nothing type of scenario. Either you get rid of all political influence or you don't. Well, what about political influence when it comes to international business? And the thing is that Korea does it to other countries does it to Korea. And again, it's like a chess game, but it's all played within the rules of that sovereign country of how they play the game. And if they don't want you coming into their sandbox and playing that game, you have to play by Korea's rules. That's all there is to it. And just like other countries, they have rules for their sandbox. You got to play by their rules. And so there's a lot of negotiating going on. There's a lot of moving the pieces on the board to benefit our country, but you have to concede and compromise so there's something for the other country and so on and so forth. But ultimately, when it comes down to immigration, the sovereign country has the ultimate say on whether people stay, get deported, or, whatever. Dealing with grievances or human rights in Korea, again, all of these things are absolutely crazy when people say, U.S. military's over there. So that was an agreement made by the Korean government through elected officials, which is allowed by law so that they can make those deals. So that's the thing, is assuming and saying, well, any political influence is wrong, and so the gotcha thing is you need to get rid of the U.S. military or whatever military, it doesn't matter. That's not a gotcha, because the two things are not the same. Okay, that's not what Article 17-2 talks about. The United States military does not participate in demonstrations and protests. Gotcha. Okay, yeah. And the last thing I ended up saying to some people was that basically, I enjoy living in Korea. Um, I appreciate the Korean people, the ethics, the work standards, the politeness, the low crime, all of that stuff. And as somebody who is planning to live here for a long time, and eventually I want to get my F513 visa, and if that works out, that'll be great. I will be in Korea. I'm not planning on going back to the United States. But with that being said, I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to follow the laws of the land here in Korea. And when it comes to immigration and all of that stuff, I got to follow those laws. And if the laws say don't participate in protests and demonstrations, I am 100% fine by that because I understand the underlying risks to the security of the nation of Korea, the economy, the healthcare, the welfare system, the whole nine yards, how that can be unduly influenced by foreigners doing that. And again, we've seen people where they bus, ship, or fly protesters in. That's not a real representation of what is going on, and that in itself would be undue influence. That's why I think we need these laws. That's why I have no problem not protesting and not demonstrating. I'm totally fine with that. And if I have any grievances, there's agencies and organizations that I can go to address those things. So we're not operating in a void. Korea isn't some poor, old, pitiful country and they need the help from social justice warriors. No, they can do things on their own. Is any country perfect? No. Is the United States perfect? No. Any country on the face of the planet is not perfect because people are involved. But with that, we see forward progression in human rights, women's rights, work, labor, the whole nine yards. All of those things keep going on here in Korea and in other countries, hopefully. A lot of countries, they don't. I mean, think about it. There's a lot of countries on planet Earth that are terrible. They're horrible. That treat people, even their own citizens, with disdain. Yeah, so stop trying to be a social justice warrior for especially the people that have never stepped outside of their home country or the United States or even their hometown. And now you're some type of international, immigration, migrant, refugee expert who knows Korean law and so on and so forth. It's like, do you even know what you're talking about, Karen or Ken? It just amazes me on this. Probably want to take a look at this article 17-2. We'll take a look. Well, let's catch up on some comments. Lovemo says, yes, Korea has its own rules for now. Globalists think otherwise. Yeah, but I think each country has their own rights to be a sovereign nation in and of themselves. George says, I guess the question is how to stop such demonstrations without making things worse. Yeah, well, the thing is like you can address concerns without having to do a demonstration or a protest. And protests and demonstrations here in Korea, let me just throw this out here, it is very different than the United States. You will see protests in the United States, and what do you see? You see people, whether it's right or wrong, you'll see people damaging property, damaging public property, private property. You'll see them damaging state and federal property, law enforcement and the whole nine yards. They'll break equipment and so on and so forth. They will damage, they will burn cars, they'll destroy buildings, they'll loot and rant, steal, whatever it is. Those are demonstrations and protests that we see in the United States and other countries. Here in Korea, you have protests and demonstrations, but they don't break the law during those things. Huge difference. So for the social justice warriors that think that, hey, and unfortunately a lot of other countries, when they protest or demonstrate, it usually involves the destruction and the breaking of laws. That's not how it's done here in Korea or Japan or Taiwan or a number of other Asian countries. You can demonstrate. Matter of fact, I've seen demonstrations where there are thousands and thousands of people and chanting and signs in the whole nine yards. And then when the demonstration's over, no one broke the law. No one burned down any stores. No one looted any stores. Matter of fact, you see the protesters cleaning up trash after themselves, and they leave it cleaner than when they got there. Very big difference. Very big difference. Dun, dun, dun. M. Ludmo says these activists are hilarious. Status of Forces Agreement doesn't allow U.S. soldiers to be activists. That's absolutely true. You're not allowed to demonstrate, not only by Korean law, but under the Status of Forces Agreement between the U.S. military and Korea. That's part of that 1977 law saying, hey, foreigners can't participate. And that Status of Forces Agreement is Korea saying, hey, oh, by the way, your soldiers can't demonstrate or protest. That's all that is. So, apparently the military, the U.S. military and their family members don't have problems with it, except for the few Kens and Karens. But, no activists. George says, being in another country is like visiting someone's house. You are the guest at their leisure. You must follow their rules. When they say it's time to go, you have to leave. Yeah, keep it simple. Keep it simple. You're not going to break into my house. You break into my house, oh, it's going to be on. You're going to be escorted out. And I'm very selective. I'm very selective who I let in my house. I am very selective. And I think a country has the same thing. If you can't determine whether somebody is a criminal or not, I'm going to err on the side of caution and say, no, you're not coming in. Yeah. And especially now with immigration and refugees, not only in Korea, but other places in the world, where they're refugees because their home country was so oppressive and they feared for their lives. And again, now we're finding out that these people, of course, in Japan, Korea, and a number of other countries where these refugees are in, why are they taking vacations, 2, 3 month long vacations back to the country that they fled from because they feared persecution, death, and harm? Why are you going back and vacationing there? I can't put my finger on it, but I think somebody's lying. Yeah. It's time for you to go. And Lovemo says a foreigner can appeal to the police or government to address abuses in Korea. One can also go to one's own damn embassy in Korea and complain. Lots of options. Yeah, globalists are silly. Yeah. And yeah, I didn't even bring up the part about going to your embassy. I mean, are you going to get immediate results? Probably not. It'll be a slow turning wheel of justice. But again, worst comes to worst, unless there's a flagrant trampling of your rights, yeah, you just got to follow the rules of the land that you live in. And if you don't like it, then leave. if you're in my house and I tell you, hey, if you come in my house, you have to take your shoes off. That's the thing here in Korea and Japan and other Asian countries. You don't wear your shoes inside the house. You have to take them off and then you come in the house, and it's for cleanliness. Let's say somebody comes in my house and it's like, they come in and I'm like, hey, whoa, you got your shoes on. They're dirty. You need to go to the front door, take your shoes off. And, we don't do that here. We like keeping our house clean and hygienic. If that person ended up saying, you know what, no, I'm not going to do that. I have a right to do whatever I want. And it's like, hold up right there, Johnny. First of all, you're in my house. You don't have the right to go against the rules that I set. If you don't want to take your shoes off before you come in my house, you're simply not coming into my house. That's all there is to it. It's kind of, somebody comes in and uses your bathroom. You're going to clean up after yourself? Yeah, of course you are. You're not going to leave and trash the place. If you're going to eat in here, you're going to be respectful. You're going to be clean. You're not going to throw trash all over the place or whatever. You're not going to put your feet up on the couch or, unruly behavior, because we have the rules of the house. And if you can't follow the rules, you're gone. Same thing with immigration. Let's talk about this Article 17.2. This is the exact text, and we'll take a look at this. It says every foreign or alien may stay in the Republic of Korea is permitted by his or her status of stay within an authorized period of stay. So in other words, if you have your visa, you can stay. Number two, no foreigner or alien staying in Korea shall engage in any political activity unless otherwise permitted by this act or other acts. There's the thing there. So, matter of fact, let me, I want to put this up on the screen because this is important. Because a lot of people that don't, unfortunately, don't understand. Where are we at now? We'll bring this up here on this here. We'll do a little bit of this. Gonna bring this down here. So yeah, it says that if you stay in Korea, you have to be here on a visa. Is basically what it comes down to. Number two, no foreigner shall participate in political activity unless otherwise permitted by this act or other acts. So that's the other thing that comes into play is that you have people that are like, oh, you can't say anything, and it's like it's totally banned. No, there are exceptions. Whether other acts, this act, or other acts allow you to do that. And again, people don't like reading things that go against their agenda. So, yeah. Let's see, number three, if a foreigner staying in the Republic of Korea engages in any political activity, the Minister of Justice may order the foreigner alien in writing to suspend such activity or issue other necessary orders. So, yeah, it's may order the foreigner in writing to suspend the activity. So basically, you'll be given a warning. Don't do this. It's pretty much cut and dried there. So it's not as draconian as what we see in the article, and it's like, oh, nobody can do anything. We're such an oppressive system, and it's like, no, actually, you can. Let's go on to the next part, because the definition and scope of, boom, there. Definition and scope of political activity. The act does not provide an exhaustive definition, but it broadly includes actions intended to influence political decision-making, such as participating in protest rallies, joining political parties, blah, blah, blah. This interpretation aligns with the court challenges and advocacy groups like OpenNet Korea, which argues the term is overly vague and suppressive. Exception, permitted if explicitly allowed by law. Permanent residents can vote in local elections under certain conditions since 2006, but not engage in broader political advocacy. So yeah, that's kind of a thing that we got there. Boom. Right there. So while some people can vote here in Korea, you're kind of limited in what you can do for demonstrations. I totally agree with it. Violated penalties talks about suspension of activities, violations of 17-2, and we'll take a look at that right here. Boom. Violations can lead to administrative orders, so in other words, suspension of the activities and giving you a warning. As we saw, deportation under Article 46, blah, of the Immigration Act. A person who violates 17 1 or 2 may be deported by the Commissioner of a Regional Immigration Service. So you may be deported. It doesn't say that you're automatically deported. It says that you may be. So there's some flexibility there. Again, it's not as draconian as some people make it out to be. But again, the end result is you can file your grievances in other venues and other agencies and, nonprofits and so on and so forth. But yeah. It's just that. Let's see, criminal penalties under, so like if you continue to do this after you get the warning, and let's see if we can get this on screen. Criminal penalties, if we get this, punishable by imprisonment with labor for up to 3 years, or a fine not exceeding 30 million won, which is about $22,000. Visa stay implications may result in the revocation of your visa, entry bans, or denial of extensions. So again, here's the other thing. If it's so bad, why are you here in Korea? You know, I don't know. It's just, I just don't get it. It's just kind of, I guess some people just need something to complain about, and everybody's, become an expert on foreign relations and immigration and human rights and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, a lot of these people haven't even lived in Korea, let alone stepped out of their own hometown, which I found out. And it's just like, seriously, you follow the rules and the laws of the land, be a good person. That's all you have to do. Now, here's the thing. Should foreigners have influence over Korea and how it runs its government in regards to immigration? No, absolutely not. I don't think so. Do foreigners have a right to air their grievances or talk about human rights, labor disputes, discrimination, so on and so forth, as a foreigner against Koreans, Korean employers, or even government agencies? Yes, they can, and they do. And there is a process, there is a due process in which to address those things, and there have been lawsuits, they can file lawsuits. So a lot of people don't even know that. It was amazing how somebody else on another chat that I was watching, it ends up some people didn't even know that foreigners could file lawsuits here in Korea. So they thought, I guess, Koreans are just a bunch of people making rice and eating kimchi, and they don't know anything about the real world, or they don't have technology, and they're still stuck in the Stone Age. Come on, seriously, that's what happens when you are not well traveled or knowledgeable. You don't have to travel outside of the United States or any other country. You can read and know things. But these people don't even take the time to read the things that they're even talking about. So let's get to some comments. Yeah. Swedish Ford says taking off your shoes is a golden rule. Yeah. If you have to clean the house, it's kind of a thing. George says, I have disposable shoe covers for guests because I rarely get company. Yeah, but again, it's easier to clean when you don't track in all the dirt into your house. Imagine that. What are the odds? Swedish says, now it's time for bed. I'm going to dive into a pillow and hope you have a nice day. Well, thank you. You too. Have sweet dreams. And thanks for showing up and send me the information on that Colts 3D, on that bug that you did. George says, have a good night. Yeah. Swedish does a little pinky wave thing. Yeah. M. Lovemo says, globalists are complaining so they can force all governments to follow their rules. Globalists want power. Sounds like a lot like communists. Korea needs to put a firm foot down on this kind of disease. I absolutely do. And the other thing I find interesting is that some people say that, you know what, you're pretty harsh on immigrants and refugees. And it's like, well, I'm an immigrant here in Korea. I'm a legal immigrant here in Korea, foreigner in Korea. So I don't mind that term, immigrant or foreigner. I am. That's what it is. Whoop-de-doo. But yeah, it's when you try to have the minority be able to be the decision makers or policy makers, and they're the minority, that's not the way things should go. George says mostly moral busybodies that want to complain and virtue signal. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. It's just absolutely crazy. Yeah, you got to follow the rules. And the thing is, if you don't want to follow the rules, then simply leave. That's all there is to it. If Korea gets to a place, so let's say there's a change in political party, and let's say that they don't like guys that are 6'2" and weigh 260 pounds. That's me, okay? And if they say, well, we don't like you because you're older, you're 60 years old and whatever these things are, we don't like you, and you and I don't like the policies that they're doing against people of my demographic, I'll leave. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be, will I be a little sad? Yeah. Will it'll kind of be frustrating? Oh yeah, it would be frustrating. But I realize as a civil and knowledgeable human being, a grown-ass man who is mature, understands that countries are sovereign and they set up rules and regulations and laws to govern their country. And I am thankful that I am a guest in this country. So, yeah, it is what it is. And politics change, immigration laws change, rules change, the whole 9 yards. But in the end, you're going to have to play by the rules, or you'll be in violation of those rules and there will be punishments. There's a cause and effect relationship there. The thing is, for most of the moral busybodies that are out there, they're trying to make these big claims that, there's this massive human rights violations in Korea or whatever country. Isn't it funny how it's always about the other countries, the other westernized countries, but it's never the countries, they never go against the countries of where these refugees come from. They never press the issue and say, hey, why is such and such country committing such atrocities against their own citizens that these people want to be refugees and live somewhere else? And then when you throw on the fact that it ends up, it's like, well, why are these refugees who left because they were in fear for their lives, why are they going back and vacationing in those countries multiple times a year? Doesn't really make sense. So are you really a refugee? No, I don't think so. And I thought I read something that was talking about that. I think maybe it was Japan or some other European country was talking about that, where they're saying, hey, you're going on vacation to the place that you said you were in fear for your life. Yeah, you're no longer going to be a refugee here in our country. I can't remember which one it was. If you can provide that, put it in the comments, because that escapes my memory. But yeah, just absolutely crazy. I just don't get it. And I think a lot of it comes that people just don't read. People don't read. They'd rather, it's easier to follow an agenda and stuff that's been put in their brain than read and find out the truth. Because if you just went by that article and other articles that have been written about this, 17-2, you would think that Korea is kind of like back in the Jim Crow days. War foreigners, they're being whipped at the post and, they're slaves and, they have zero rights whatsoever. And you think the most horrible things. But when you look at the facts and you read the laws, then you see, wow, that's totally untrue. So in other words, the agenda is fueling this battle, and they're picking and choosing what they want to say. And as we saw in that article, just that one article, there's a lot of false assumptions. There's a lot of things that are just blatantly untrue. And yeah, there's a reason why you would do that. Imagine that. What are the odds? They're trying to put out information to have influence you in an unjust and untrue way so that you will side with them. But when you actually read the laws like we did, and we look at the situations and you look at history and why that 17-2 came into effect, there's good reasons for it. And so far it's worked well for Korea in keeping it a sovereign nation, where other nations haven't, and it's been to their detriment. Isn't it always interesting as you see refugees or immigrants that leave countries in the Middle East that go to Europe or go to the United States or Asian countries or whatever, but none of the Arab nations around them will take them in. They have their own immigration rules and policies, but yet social justice warriors won't rail and protest against those countries that won't take in those immigrants or refugees. Why? It's interesting. I saw an interview with a guy who was like a Saudi or some rich Saudi or whatever. He says, we don't take those people in because you can't verify who they are, and we have to guard our country, is basically what he said. And it's like, yeah, that's simple. He says, we don't play. I was like, Good for you. Crusader Survivor. I haven't seen you before. Says we Koreans follow American culture of the 1950s. Yeah, I think so. Korean conservatives follow 1950s America, and Korean liberals follow Chinese communists. It could be. It could be. But I have met some Koreans that are kind of liberal leaning, that they're not communists, but they just have some more liberal ideas, conservative ideas. Being a conservative and being a liberal, it kind of depends on what you're talking about. I'm an independent, so I like good ideas from the left and the right, as long as they make sense and it's good for the society as a whole. But you can go to any extreme and you can say there's extreme conservatism that is detrimental to a society. But then you could also say the same thing if you can go so far left and go into communism and say, that's kind of extreme too. So there needs to be a balance. But what I appreciate about Korea is that the people are hardworking, they're respectful, they're nice, they're polite. They came back from nothing. The Korean War left Korea a wasteland. And Korea, like a military operation, they said, we are going to rebuild and we're going to give it everything we've got. And Korea has now become a huge, huge powerhouse. It is amazing on how fast and how big and how strong Korea has come from nothing since 1953. Is utterly amazing. I just have so much respect for Koreans. Crusader Survivor says, right now, Lee Jae-myung is communist. We need President Yoon back in power. I don't know. I can't really say on that because that's outside of the realm. You got that whole politics thing going on. My thing is that I just want people to be good people wherever you are. And whether, regardless of political affiliation, I should treat you as a good person because I want to be treated as a good person. So that's kind of how I look at it. George says, unfortunately, a lot of people nowadays can be played like a fiddle. That's true. Crusader Survivor says, militarily, Republic of Korea is the closest ally to the USA. Yeah, Korea's a pretty good ally, but you're always going to have, problems going on between countries. We've seen that over time. It's kind of like, you have problems with family members or extended family members. You might get into little arguments from time to time, but overall, we want what's best for our families. And for me, I kind of reduce that down. I just want people to be good. I'm a good person because I think that's how people should be treated. So that's really what it comes down to me. Why should I, as a foreigner, make it harder for Koreans? As a foreigner who lives in Korea, I should not be a drain on the Korean taxpayers. If you can't support yourself in Korea, then you probably shouldn't be in Korea. I don't know. That's kind of how I see it. Sultan, he says, well, that's just idealistic fundamentalist thinking. The real world does not and cannot work like that. Nedventive says, not far away, get up there. Not far away from U.S. citizens looking for refugee status with other countries. I don't know. There's a lot of wild stuff going on in the United States. Crazy stuff. Did you hear about the taxes in Virginia? They got a Democrat, they filled Virginia. It's pretty much Democrat. And when that happened, they had 50 new taxes. And it is insane. It's like, holy crap. And in California, Governor Newsom he wants to do a mileage tax. So, which is crazy because you get taxed on the gas, you get taxed on your car, and now you're going to get taxed like 6 to 9 cents per mile. What about people that have long commutes? They're going to get taxed, $12, $13, $15, $2,000 a year. And if you got a 2-income working family, you're talking around 4 or 5, 6 grand a year extra that you're going to have to pay. That is absolutely insane. Um, I, there's no way I could live in California. That is crazy. We got some other comments here. Sultan says, for the size that holds power, it's worth remembering that with great power comes great responsibility. Because tables can turn. So what's good for the goose needs to be good for the gander. And it needs to be fair and equitable, in my opinion. I don't know. Let's see. But absolutely true. Yes, I live in Virginia. It's getting crazy. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Yellow Tang. Man. Yeah, I saw those things. Holy crow. 50 new taxes. Crazy. Sultan says, conversely, on the other side, has to step up significantly. They need to be better than the norm, so to speak. I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. Crusader Survivor says, I thought the American Revolution of 1776 was because of tax increase. Yeah, well, yeah, basically, because you had people coming over from Europe to the United States. They set up the colonies, and then those colonies would work, and they were getting taxed on tea. There's that whole thing about, the Tea Party deal and throwing the tea and revolting and so on and so forth. But there was a lot more besides that. Besides the taxes, the representation, the government, the undue influence and the bias of having a government that pushed a certain religion. That was another thing that in the original colonies are like, hey, come on, seriously, really? And that's why we have, the freedom of religion in the United States, as long as it doesn't go against the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of other citizens within the United States. So once you cross that line, that's usually where the problems kind of pop up. So, but yeah, taxes was kind of a big thing. It was a big tax on that. But yeah, California's getting bad, Virginia's getting bad, Seattle's getting bad, Colorado's getting bad. That's why we left Colorado. Absolutely crazy. Because the saying is, Colorado does, or as California does, Colorado will. So California makes all these bad decisions, and then Colorado is usually the next state that follows right behind California. And it's to its detriment. I've seen Colorado go from a great state to it's bad, 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 bad. So, let's see. George says Virginia lost its mind reading the stuff they are trying to pass, and it's crazy. I know, right? That is wild. I mean, it's just like, just tax people to death. And I don't know. Time to move. Sell and move. We sold everything and moved here to Korea. So yeah, crazy stuff. Yellow Tang says taxes are the least of the problems with the bills they're introducing. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff they're doing is just like, holy crow. The policies and all that stuff, crazy. Yellow Tang says, we left Washington State because of the politics. Now look what's going on. Gerd, don't want to have to move again. Yeah, I lived in Washington State too. It used to be good. But yeah, it seems like Washington, Oregon, so. They're not as crazy. California's definitely out there. Colorado's bad. Virginia's bad. Pretty much, places, Detroit, Michigan, let's see where else. New York. Just horrible, horrible things. Taxes out the yin yang, and New York was one of those where, that Mondami guy, who's the mayor of New York, wants to, basically governmentize housing, have government housing, take over government housing. And the thing is, he put laws and everything into place to where landlords, they can't afford it. They want to rent freeze, and it's like, well, wait a second. If you've got a unit and then you need to put X amount of dollars to upgrade that unit, but you can't raise the rent, you're going to go in the hole. So a lot of landlords in New York, it's better for them to not rent at all. So they just close the building down. They're just hoping that I'll shut the building down. We won't rent it out. We'll just hold it, buy and hold. and we'll just hold on to it until there's a change in political leaders, and we can get back to doing what we were doing. And I don't know, some of those, I think it's going to be a losing battle there, personally, from what I see. It's not going to be sustainable. It's going to be like California. So many businesses, huge businesses, are leaving Silicon Valley, California as a whole. Their manufacturing is gone. Their oil production and refinements, two big companies left there, going to Texas and other places. It's just, nobody wants to be in California anymore. Let's see. Crazy. Yellow Tank, Wisconsin. Yeah, that's another one. Crusader Survivor says, or they would rent it out commie style and each renter would only get 3 square meters. Or the other thing is that if the government takes that over, so let's say you've got a landlord, he just lets the property go. The government takes over that property, they still need to upgrade that property. So to get the funds, they need to borrow money and fix that property, to upgrade it and make it livable. And then they rent it out at a reduced rate. But the problem is, on the books, you're in debt and you're not going to be able to pay off that debt. You're constantly going further and further into debt. So it's a losing proposition. And like you said, it ends up, there's people, now there's this talk of, we're going to make rents. It was either in California and or New York, talking about we're going to have this graduated rent scale. And so if you make a bunch of money, your rent will be a certain amount. But if you make less money, then your rent is going to be lower. And then if you don't make any money, then you don't have to pay any rent. Guess what? There's going to be a ton of people that are going to say, why am I working my ass off when I can just quit? I could be on welfare and subsistence and I can get free housing. There's a lot of people that are going to do that. And there will be people who will move from other places to get free housing and live off of government welfare. And they were totally fine with that. What is that going to do to housing? It's just horrible. It is just horrible. Let's see, we got Adam Levine. Good evening from New Hampshire. Hey, welcome to the stream. Yeah, we're talking about some good stuff here. George says, isn't bad. However, we have a lot of people that ran from California, and the problem is they're bringing their policies with them. Yeah, that's problematic. There's people that don't like dirty houses, and then they themselves are dirty, and they bring that dirt into your house. Yeah, you're not coming in my house. I'm sorry. Let's see what else we got. Tennessee isn't bad, however. We have a lot of people that ran from California. Okay, we just did that. Oh, it's this one. Oh. Like Alaska? I don't know, maybe. Yellow Tank says, friends of ours from Washington State are currently moving to Tennessee. They're trying to talk us into moving there. There was a number of people that I knew when I was working in Colorado that they were going to retire, or they're considering, they're working government jobs, because I worked in the government sector, that they were considering leaving the state and going to other states because it's just so oppressive, and they could see where Colorado was going. More taxes, more taxes, more taxes, less benefits, more taxes, bad policies, and nobody wants to put up with that. It's just not sustainable. Yellow Tank says, is there any place that isn't crazy anymore? I don't know. That's a good question. Everybody's got a little bit of crazy. It's whether you want to live with it or not. We came here to Korea, so there's that. But we like Korea. It's enjoyable. I don't know. That's why I think overseas retirement is, you're going to see more and more of it, especially for people that are coming to retirement age that can't retire in the United States. Overseas retirement is going to be something that they're going to look at. Crusader says, Alaska gets oil money. An Alaskan told me that if you're living there for more than 6 months, you get $1,000 a month. I don't think it's $1,000 a month. There is a stipend, kind of like off of the oil revenue, and the profits, and then it's divided up so much money per year. I don't think it's $1,000. What is the Alaska dividend fund? I think it's $1,000 a year is what it comes down to. It says that residents must have lived in Alaska for the entire preceding calendar year, intend to remain permanently, and yeah, it's like $1,000 a year. So, but that's because they make money and it's profit, so they pass that on to the citizens. So, Alaska permanent fund per year. I think it's $1,000 a year somewhere. Yeah, it says the typically pays residents between $1,000 to $2,000 annually. So yeah, the average is about $1,200 to $1,600 a year. So yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Let's see, catch up on some comments here. New Hampshire is not that bad. Oh, okay, cool. New rule: when you move to a new state, you can't vote for 7 years, so you have time to acclimatize to a new state. That would be interesting. Of course, then you got places like New York and California California has tried to make it to tax you if you try to move out of California. New York's going to do that too. Watch it. You're going to see more of that coming up. Eventually, I think that's going to happen. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, Crusader says small change. Yeah, $1,200 to $1,600 a year. But when you look at milk, it's like $10, $12, $15 a gallon. Yeah, that little permanent fund from Alaska doesn't really do much. Maybe that's why a lot of people in Alaska have a bunch of kids. Yellow Tank says my brother moved back to Alaska. Cost of living is very high. Yeah, I had a stepbrother that lived up there, and I knew some people that lived there. It's crazy expensive. Maybe not as expensive as Hawaii, but I think Hawaii is the most expensive. Crusader says I was thinking of living off grid in Alaska because of that. I've lived off grid in the Northwest Territory before, so I'm confident for Alaska. But it's just too damn cold. And the mosquitoes there, holy crow, that is insane. I don't know. That and the expenses. I mean, a lot of people live off grid up there, but you still need to have some type of income. So if you did like remote work, that could work out really well. Or if you got some type of pension or money coming in or whatever. Yeah, it's doable. There's a lot of people who live off grid. As a matter of fact, here in Korea, we're looking at, there's a possibility, it's small, but we're looking at getting maybe a single family home, like an old farm. And if we do that, then we'll get solar panels and all that stuff, and we'll kind of be off grid a little bit. Maybe not 100%, but yeah. It depends on how much all that costs and our budget and what we want to spend. Yellow Tank says, I hate snow and cold. I want to move to southern Georgia. Wife wants to move to the North Pole. Yeah, I'm not a big, I don't know, Georgia, hot and humid? I don't know. That would be a bit much for me. I mean, I can deal with cold, but yeah, I don't want to deal with it. George says, I wouldn't mind Florida, especially if they get rid of property tax. Yeah, if they get rid of property tax, that'd be good. I just don't like the hurricanes or whatever the storms are that come in that kind of hit Florida repeatedly. That just seems crazy. Maybe I would need to be in the northern part of Florida, but definitely be warmer. I think there's a little bit of humidity down there. Well, I know there's humidity down there because I've been to Louisiana, and I just don't like humidity, but I guess I can deal with that. Yellow Tank says sinkholes scare me. Wake up and your house is gone. That'd be wild. Crusader says if you live on an isolated island off the southern coast of Korea, the government can give you about $200 per month. Saw many documentaries for that. Encourages national safety. Yeah, I've seen that too. But then you're going to have everything is going to have to be shipped, and yeah, $200 a month. Other things that you need to look at besides, stores, ordering stuff. What about medical? What is the medical facilities? How good are they? What is the quality of medical care? I guess if you're younger, that might be worth doing. I don't know. But there's also things in Korea where they're trying to encourage people to move to countryside areas because there's a lack of population. Everybody moves out of the country towns and stuff. So they're actively trying to get more people to live out in the country. So I don't know if that, we'll have to look into that and see if we qualify for any of that. George says he's born in Florida. Well, cool. If you're good at off-grid, you can be king of your island. Yes, you can. As long as I had 3D printers and a gym and food, and air conditioning and internet and a few other things, I can do okay. So yeah, it is very, very interesting. But yeah, so talking about being retired in Korea, allowing foreigners to participate in protests or demonstrations, is that a good thing? And ultimately it comes down to keeping Korea safe and the people who live here safe. And I think they do that. So I just I hope the Korean government looks at what is happening around the world and other countries that allow foreigners to do demonstrations and protests, how that can go wrong, and they keep what they got. But that's just me. I don't know. We'll see. Crusader says, I got rejected from Rock Army enlistment, and that's why I can never live in Korea. I don't know. It must have been like some medical condition or something. Yeah, that happens at times. So, Crusader says, thank you for keeping Korea safe. I do my best. I served my time in the military in the United States and did a lot of time here in Korea. So now I'm just kind of enjoying what Korea has to offer, and I appreciate it a lot. And Inventive says, I live in Tampa Bay, Florida. I have a solar system with 100% off-grid capability. Nice. There's some people that do that here in Korea. There's some retirees that I know that they live out in the country. They got a bunch of solar panels. And I think during the hottest part of the Korean summer, he paid like $60 a month for electricity. Everything else was covered. And that was he said he kept the AC on, and inside it was 73 or 75 degrees through the whole summer. So yeah, his off-grid system is pretty good. So yeah. And Love Mode says, great stream. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for watching. Appreciate y'all stopping by. With that, we've been at it for over 2 hours now. So I don't know. I'm getting a little hungry, even though I had donuts prior. If you go back to the beginning of the video, had some awesome Korean pastries. Cream-filled goodness along with my latte, and that's all gone. But I'm getting hungry again. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go ahead and close this out. Appreciate everybody that watched and the new people that stopped by. Stop in from time to time. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. That's probably the best thing that you could do for me, is to help out with the channel, is to hit the like button, subscribe, ring that bell, and you can see more streams like this. I also do stuff on 3D printing, miniature painting. Yeah, I do guys like this, like that. I do painting, resin printing, FDM printing, other hobby stuff I'm going to be doing. Because, yeah, I'm retired. I'm an American expat, retired here in Korea, so you got to stay busy. And I can't just go to the gym every single day. So we do stuff like that. We got a new guy, Walt Kowalski. Face red heart shape. Cool. Yeah. And then we got A. Dressler. Cheers. Good seeing you. Welcome. Welcome. Sultan pops in and says, my younger brother lived in San Fran for most of his life, and he never stopped complaining about the taxes and regulations. Yeah, it's been there, done that. They've got a lot of stuff going on there. But yeah, in like taxes here in Korea, the one thing talking about taxes, the property tax in the United States for our house is probably up to like $3,000 right now. For the old house that we had in the United States, of course, we sold it. We're in this 4-bedroom, 2-bath apartment here in Korea, and we bought that, and it's like, what, $250 a year? So it works out. I like that. Sultan says now he's planning to retire at Asia, possibly Japan or SG. SG? Singapore? SG? I'm not sure what SG is. SG is what? Singapore, yeah. Singapore, I was right. Southeast Asia, yeah, Singapore. SG is the international abbreviation for Singapore. I'm getting old, folks. I'm gonna be 60 this year, so I gotta check, make sure what I'm saying is, I know what I'm saying. So anyway, yeah, appreciate the likes and everything, the conversations that we have and seeing different points of view. And again, ultimately, like I said, just be a good person. You know, follow the rules and the laws of the land and be good to people. And if you don't like it, move somewhere where you can be a good person or be a better person, right? That's what it's about. Leave all the drama behind. With that, we're going to go ahead and we'll do the obligatory outro, which is right here. Boom! If you want to email me, there is my email address, official thevariedlife@gmail.com. And people send me pictures of their pets, their 3D prints. Even had a guy send me pictures of his smoked ribs that look delicious, so you can do that as well. If you want to buy me a coffee, you can do that, link in the description box. But like I said, the very best thing that you can do is like the video and subscribe. So even though I'm retired, I don't need YouTube money, but it's just kind of a thing. I want to build the channel and I enjoy it and I have fun and I get to hang around cool people like you all. So honestly, I thank you. Thank you for showing up. With that, we will finish this and we will see you all on the next stream. Peace. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stream. Thank you very much.